Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, online audience, everyone. We'll now start Thailand Korea FinTech online seminar at 3 p.m. in Korea time and 1 p.m. in Bangkok time. Now let us begin Thailand Korea FinTech online seminar. On behalf of the FinTech Center Korea and co-organizer ASEAN Business Center and ZeroPay, I would like to welcome and thank you all online audience from Korea, Thailand, and overseas panelists to join today's seminar. I'm Sung Kyun Son in FinTech Center Korea. Let me briefly go over today's program. 그 프로그램 좀 오픈해 주세요. Okay, today's program will begin with the opening remarks by Chairman of FinTech Center Korea and congratulatory remarks by Mr. Crowdfunding, Minister's Counselor, Sole Director of the Thailand Board of Investment, and presentation by ASEAN Business Center, Thailand FinTech Association, Ananda Development Public Company, Peer Power, and presentation by FinTech Center Korea and CASA Fly High. Due to the time constraint and pre-inquiries and online inquiries will be answered on Q&A sessions. Now, please welcome Chairman of FinTech Center Korea. Chairman Yoo Shin-jung leads the FinTech Center Korea and the professor of Sagang University. He has extensive experience in FinTech industry and finance industry, and the most prominent figure in FinTech and academia. Please welcome Chairman Yoo Shin-jung for opening remarks.
Good afternoon. My name is Yoo Shin-jung, Chairman of FinTech Center Korea. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Ki Bong-moon, the head of ASEAN Business Center Korea, and his officials, and Gun-ju Lee, the head of Korea Easy Payment Foundation. We are so-called, it is so-called, ZeroPay. It's kind of public agency who takes time to organize Thailand Korea online fintech seminar. Also, I especially thank to Krita Wait, Maya Mankura, Council of Royal Thai Embassy Seoul. There are speakers from the Thailand side. I thank to Ki Bong-moon, head of ASEAN Business Center, Satapon Patanakua, chairman of Thailand FinTech Association, Kuson Saprasad, founder of ANDA and former senior vice president of Siam Commercial Bank, and Boparam Pumbanit, CEO of Pure Power. Also, there are speakers from the Korean side as well. I would also like to express warm regards to Chang Wan-ye, CEO of CASA, who will present CASA's the real estate exchange platform, and Hyung-gu Gang, Humphrey Gang, CMO of Fly High, who will introduce Fly High services and transformation, and sees the Korea data exchange and my data business as the example of the new era. Especially not just financial institution and fintechs, but also big tech, kind of big fintech enablers with IT platform entering my data business in Korea. Therefore, we expect many technology convergences in the financial sectors with the data of AI, blockchain, security, and IoT, and so on. Finally, FinTech Center Korea, working under the Financial Services Commission Korea, does various efforts to boost up digital transformation and to help FinTech ecosystem in financial industry. In addition, FinTech Center Korea has organized FinTech Korea FinTech Week 2020 last May, and opened the expo from the last Thursday of May. We have successfully achieved over 170,000 online visitors and over 1.1 million pages views in 2 weeks. Once again, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Royal Thai Embassy Seoul, ASEAN Business Center Korea, and ZeroPay, and other fintech-related personnel and companies for joining this webinar. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you, Chairman, for delivering opening remarks and your great support to fintech industry, Korea and abroad. Now, please welcome Mr. Kritawit, Minister Counselor. He is a Seoul Director, Thailand Board of Investment Seoul Office, and Counselor in Royal Thai Embassy. Please welcome him for his congratulatory remarks.
Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Yu Shin-chong, President of Fintech Center Korea, Mr. Lee Kin-ju, President of Zero Pay, Mr. Sathapol Pattanakuha, Executive Director of Thai Fintech Association, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so honored and pleased to welcome you to this afternoon's seminar on fintech cooperation between Thailand and Korea. Today, Thailand's economic landscape has already been changed. Agriculture and low-cost manufacturing can be no longer serve as the backbone of the Thai economy anymore. We are now moving towards what is called Thailand 4.0, where technology, innovation, and creativity are the new engines of growth. The Thai government also announced the new National Digital Economy Master Plan, which outlines the certain steps toward the transformation to a digital economy and the realization of the digital government. So, to implement this master plan, the Thai government has approved a $100 million budget to support the investment projects and to provide the good opportunities for foreign Korean investors to join with us. Nowadays, South Korea is considered as one of the leaders in digital economy in this region. The strength in technology-driven innovation has significantly contributed to Korea's strong economic presence in Thailand and in the Southeast Asia. Line is a good example of Korean successful company in conducting digital business in Thailand. And right now, as you know, the COVID-19 has changed the behavior of Thai consumers. Actually, according to the nationwide survey on Thai consumers, the survey results indicate that all digital services, including online shopping, food delivery, streaming content, games, and virtual meeting, these all have more opportunities in expanding their business online in Thailand. Also, it is noticeable that the younger generation tends to be the early adopter in digital services in our business activities. Some particular business operators in Thailand are experiencing a big growth during the pandemic outbreak. As the consumers are spending more time at home, a digital content platform like Netflix is gaining more than 15 million subscribers worldwide. While the Shopee, a leading e-commerce platform under the C Group, they also received more than 450% increase in user numbers in Thailand. Another example is Lazada. It is an online shopping platform also experiencing the same trend with more than 100% increase in user number in Thailand. Moreover, the applications for delivery services and online car booking like Line Man also gained 100% increase in average income. So for those big opportunities that I mentioned, the Thai government agencies also ensure that the investors and entrepreneurs in these sectors will receive enough support and incentives. Actually, there are various government entities tasked to facilitate Thailand's digital development, in particular such as the Digital Economy Promotion Agency, the Digital Government Development Agency, as well as the BOI, where the tax and non-tax incentives are offered to the business activities and to the digital industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Thai and the Korean governments have shared the same aspiration to promote the new entrepreneurs to start business and to encourage more startups in the IT industry. I hope that today's seminar will allow the Korean investors to have a clearer view of the fintech ecosystem in Thailand and will have the greater cooperation between our two countries in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Counselor, for your congratulatory remarks.
Thank you.
To today's seminar for Thailand and Korea's fintech industry cooperation and development in the future. Now, let us begin the first session presentation by Thailand. This session will be introduced by Mr. Ki Bong-moon, head of Asean Business Center. Ki Bong-moon serves as head of Asean Business Center. He is a co-organizer to introduce Thailand Fintech Association and fintech companies to today's seminar. Mr. Ki Bong-moon, please introduce this program. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Son. Mr. Jung Yu-shin, President of Fintech Center Korea, and Mr. Kritawit Damiamankura, Director of Thailand BOI Seoul Office and the Minister Counselor of Royal Thai Embassy. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, I'm so pleased to introduce three prominent Thai speakers in sector of fintech industry today. Three speakers' presentation will help Korean fintech players understand fintech business environment in Thailand. Our first Thai speaker, Mr. Sasapon, board member of Thai Fintech Association, will deliver presentation on the fintech ecosystem in Thailand. Second speaker, Mr. Koson Saparasat, managing director of Ananda, will deliver speech on fintech landscape 2020 in Thailand from his wide experience in this field. Especially Dr. Koson has ever founded fintech startup and occupied the senior vice president position at the Siam Commercial Bank, which is one of the top 3 banks in Thailand. I'm very, very honored to invite him as a speaker of this webinar today. Finally, I'd like to introduce Mr. Prapon Ponpanit, founder of Fear Power. He will deliver presentation on crowdfunding business opportunities in Thailand. From now on, I wish all participants explore fintech business opportunities in Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ki Bong-moon, for your introduction of 3 prominent Thailand company. Now, if we are ready, then let's go to presentation by Mr. Sasapon. He is a CEO of a Thailand Fintech Association. Mr. Sasapon, you may begin your presentation.
Hi, a very good afternoon, everyone. And also Kun Kritawit Mathayamankun from Royal Thai Embassy, Mr. Yu Shin-jun, Chairman of Fintech Center Korea, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is indeed a great pleasure for me to be with you here today to present the fintech ecosystem in Thailand. On behalf of Thai Fintech Association, I would like to take this opportunity to warmly welcome you all. And in this conjunction, I would like to share some of my thoughts and insights on fintech ecosystem in Thailand. Thailand has a population of 70 million with 93 billion mobile connectors. 75% of population has an access to the internet and very, very active on social media. Also, we have a very low unbanked rate, thanks to Bank of Thailand policy to bring under the financial inclusion in Thailand. Also, 30 billion people or 50% of population using digital payment transaction, 23% growth from the last year. Total annual value of digital consumer payments is $13 billion, which is quite big. And also, I believe this year will be a lot higher due to the COVID outbreak. In terms of mobile wallet using, 47% of Thailand internet users use the mobile to pay for goods and services, very well above from the global average, which is just 37%. From the research, South Korea win everyone out with the 55% ratio, Thailand is ranked on the same tier with China and India, a little lag behind Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam. And in terms of digital payment transaction, JP Morgan found out that 30% of the payments are via the credit card, bank transfer, and mobile wallets are on the second rank at 23%, and this number is keep growing. From this perspective, I'm quite convinced that Thailand is leapfrogging and already well on its way to digital disruption, and financial technology has become a part of Thai people's daily life. Also, with this ecosystem ripe for disruption, Thailand has produced a quite big variety of innovation in fintechs, whether they are from a small team with groundbreaking idea or a giant incumbent who is trying to keep up with ever-changing customer need. I think good place to start maybe with the digital payment sector, which includes e-wallet payment, payment transaction processing, as well mobile banking app from classical banks. Interestingly, players in this arena are dominated by the bigger players in banks and telco, along with fintech startups. Bangkok Bank, Kasikorn Bank, Siam Commercial Bank or SCB, and Krung Thai Bank dominates the majority of market share both in banking industry and in digital payments industry. The same goes to the True Money and ASM Pay, which are the biggest telco in Thailand and take the majority share in e-wallet segment. In payment processing area, fintech like Omise, DGO, and 2C2P are in combating with financial banks. And with 13 million active users, True Money has the largest market share of the non-bank digital payments operator in terms of users and offline merchants. The growth was driven by the migration from non-credit card shoppers to a cash payments to digital wallets. In March this year, during the peak of the coronavirus outbreak, the number of new digital wallet users grew by 25% month by month. Also, in terms of blockchain and cryptocurrency, Thailand is also a hotbed for cryptocurrency and blockchain industry. In crypto exchange, Bitcup and Pro are two biggest players. Market share of both together adds up to over 85% of total crypto trading volume in Thailand, 64% from Bitcup and 21% from Pro respectively. On the crypto and DeFi side, Ccoin and Brand Protocol are prominent players in this area. Ccoin is the first cryptocurrency to implement the Zero Coin protocol and still one of the top privacy-focused cryptocurrency token. Also, on the blockchain tech providers who provide consultancy and blockchain tech solution, there are international players like Accenture, bank spin-off like BCI and KBTG, and fintech players like Smart Contract Blockchain Studio. Customers for this segment are usually from financial sectors, asset management companies, enterprises, and governments. One success story from this sector is Bitcup already just completed its pre-Series A fundraising round and received 50 million baht in capitals. After the round, the company was valued at 750 million baht or $25 million. They are now partnering with security brokers and asset management companies to expand their services to the wide range of investors with a wide range of risk appetites. Another success worth mentioning in Thailand's blockchain scene is the issuance of debenture bond from Toyota Leasing and issuance of FX bond from Kasikorn Bank using blockchain as a service platform from Smart Contract Blockchain Studio, which helped reduce the cost of issuing, provide real-time information on bond holding, as well as simplifying the implicated issuance process witnesses in the debenture market. This is one small step for a fintech company, but one giant leap for Thai capital markets industry. Also on the retail investment side is another business that Thailand fintech players aim to disrupt. In investment, there are phenomena, Jitta, and Ava, who provide wealth management service with robo-advisory, portfolio management, and also automated investment program. For personal finance, iTax help tax planning a lot less pain, Refin and Nobro focus on debt refinancing. Earlier this year, Phenomena announced that it has raised $10 million in Series B funding, round led by Open Space Venture and Gobi, which helped bring its total funding to $13 million. According to the report from EY, Thailand scored high in terms of regulatory openness. So in the digital lending, there are a few prominent players in this area. For example, Grab Finance and Peer Power, who will be present in the following: Credit OK, Sinvatana, Asean, and Dreammaker Crowdfunding. Also, in one popular area in this digital lending is the product comparison, which we can go to GoBear, Silspan, and Rabbit Finance. And on the Thailand policies and regulation and regulators, according from the Baker, in recent year, Thailand has seen an ongoing regulators' attempt to carefully balance innovation and risks. On the one hand, Thai regulators recognize the need for innovation and are working to support and encourage fintech activity through actions such as new regulation and license framework changes and creation of regulatory sandboxes. On the other hand, there are significant concerns that existing risks, especially surrounding cybersecurity and fraud, are becoming heightened by fintech growth. Also, in regulation for financial institutions, digital payments, P2P lending, e-wallet, digital bank, credit information are improved or legislated under the Bank of Thailand oversight. Also, with the digital assets, which include cryptocurrency, crowdfunding, and securities, are under the supervision of Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC. License for insurtech activities such as microinsurance, marketplace, claim agents are with the Office of Insurance Commission or OIC. Also, on the digital infrastructure side, digital ID certificates and digital signature, which are crucial information for modern day transactions, are with Electronic Transaction Development Agency or ETDA. Also, ladies and gentlemen, in recent years, Thailand has reached a new phase of fintech development. Thai population has a high digital and internet penetration rate, which means that much can be done to engage the untapped market and key area of fintech development, such as digital payments, blockchain technology, and wealth management. Payments, wealth tech, and blockchain are in the most concentrated segments in Thailand, but other areas such as insurtech, corporate finance, digital lending are emerging. Thailand also scored high in terms of regulatory openness and advancements, as the regulators offer accommodating policies and have gone on the collaboration with neighboring countries such as Singapore, Hong Kong, UK, Korea on fintech cooperation. Thailand have witnesses a remarkable progress in advancing digital financial service and have been creating foundation needed to digital transform the financial system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sasafon, for your insightful presentation of key sectors on Thailand fintech ecosystem, business opportunities, investment success stories, government regulation policies. Thank you. Now, let us begin with the second presentation from Mr. Koson. He is a managing director of Ananda and former senior vice president of Siam Commercial Bank. Mr. Koson, please begin your presentation.
All right, thank you very much, and hello everyone here. I would not have any deck to show with you guys. However, I think I would like to talk about something important to us these days, right? So the topic of my I would say discussion, not the presentation, because I would like you guys to jump in anytime you like as well, right? Because I do not think I know everything, right? So it's more about the topics that we, can have you guys stay engaged during my 10 minutes here, okay? So basically, I think I would not also focus on my own country, Thailand, because even though, like you have heard, from our chairman of fintech association Thailand that we have been developing. But if you compare it to you guys in Korea, South Korea, I think you guys are much more developed. So in that sense, I would be looking forward to be learning from you guys today more than presenting to you what we have been developing so far. However, when it comes to the landscape of 2020, okay, I think this year, the year 2020, it will be the year that we will be remembering forever. Would you agree with that? Right? The 2020, I think it's for everything. If you look at the startups alone, it doesn't have to be fintech startups, right? It's a very difficult time in Thailand, right? And also in for other countries as well, because of the the whole downturn thing, right? The investors have less money, and then the corporates have less money, right? Everyone has to survive, so the startup would be in the difficult situation, right? So when it comes to fintech, I think fintech startups, if we have to compare it with fintech initiatives, launched by bigger players like banks and telcos and so on, right? From this point alone, I think one key takeaway for us today may be that I think we have to accept that the bigger fish, would I think would become much more stronger, right? I think the smaller fish, for the past 5 years in terms of fintech, we gave the the bigger fish too much time, right? And when it comes to the situation like this, right, the bigger corporates, the bigger fish here have deeper pocket, right? So I think they would have a higher chance to survive, and that means that in terms of fintech things that they do, they would be I think would be having more chance, right? So I think that's the point number one. Okay, I think many fintech startups will be having a hard time. Quite likely, right? But however, the fintech startups would have, I think, I strongly believe that they have a bigger chance than other, startups in general, except the kind of like food delivery or logistics thing, e-commerce, right? Because those guys these days are a very great time for them as well, right? And when it comes to that e-commerce thing, is actually the key enabler for the fintech, not just for fintech startups, but also, for the banks and also other big corporates that that have been trying to do fintech, because it's clear that adoption during COVID situation, is a lot higher, right? People cannot go out, right? People don't want to carry too much cash, right? So in terms of fintech, I think that could be grouped into the payment category, right? So I think it's very important to look at it from the customer adoption perspective in order to map it with the kind of the landscape in general, okay? I can see that normally when it comes to fintech, there are payment, lending, and wealth, okay? For the lending part, I think our next speaker from Peer Power, I am very much looking forward to hearing the story from Peer Power, because I believe that, they would have many more clients or users these days, because it's a tough situation, right? For example, factoring, invoice, lending, and so on, right? So these days, right? So I think many people many SMEs, entrepreneurs are in trouble, so they would want that so much in Thailand. So the role of data analytics, data science, that the company like Peer Power and other big guys have would be very important to making this happen, right? For the wealth part, I think I would want to maybe touch upon the community of crypto savvy people, because from the previous presentation by our chairman of Fintech Association, you may have seen the company called BitCup, right? So our company Ananda Development is actually a real estate company, right? But these days we had to jump into the fintech a lot more, because I think you can say that like fintech these days is not just in the banking industry, right? It's very clear. It's telco, it's line, it's smaller startups, it's even for our real estate company. This day we're starting to accept crypto payment, for buying our own condominium. We also, have apartments in Thailand like Ascot and Somerset. Okay, in terms of expat who would like to rent an apartment using crypto, we need to allow that as well. So this, would mean that, for the people who carry crypto, I think they would play a lot bigger role in the economy and also in terms of fintech landscape in general, right? So the company that I mentioned, BitCup, that you have seen in the presentation previously, we have hosted them these days. So basically, they come into our office, and actually we are collaborating together with them. So this point is about actually to kind of connect or integrate, like the ecosystem, not just the banking, not just real estate. I think many verticals are actually very much trying to connect these days. And one of the key things that we have been doing together is about the fintech part. So basically, it would be a lot about this. And I think lastly, I can say something, maybe a little bit more about, like the role of logistics and also the food delivery thing that actually has been enabling the fintech so much in Thailand. For the past 5 or 10 years, when I still was in a bank, Siam Commercial Bank, right, we were working so hard in order to initiate this fintech. I call it fintech pillars because we have been trying to do many things in terms of fintech. For example, digital bank, we do incubation. Okay, we also do venture capital, invest in, a number of interesting things. But I can tell you that these days, right, things have become a lot easier. It's actually due to the problems that we having these days, the COVID situation. So the landscape has been changing, right? Consumers are very much, more adopting, crypto payment or maybe just e-payment, right? In terms of wealth, they invest through crypto, okay? In terms of lending, right? The crypto lending is also start to come, right? So in short, I think what I can tell you guys today is that we can see very clear trend that, it's actually the good time for fintech business. Okay, not just the big guys, but also smaller guys. But it's just that it's harder that for the smaller guys or smaller fish to play the game. That's what I can see in Thailand these days. So yeah, any questions or maybe if you would like to add anything, please, we can have some time right now or maybe towards the end of our session today.
Thank you, Mr. Koson, for your insightful comments and perspectives on fintech startups and facing challenges and opportunities in this COVID area. Okay, let us discuss your comments and perspective in the Q&A session later. And let's move on to a final presentation by Mr. Borapon from Peer Power. Mr. Borapon, you may start here. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and distinguished guests and speakers. I'll try to share my screen, but if not, I'll maybe ask KB for some help. Let's see here. Can you see that?
I can see your screen, yes.
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I think I'll just start with a little bit of introduction on myself. The only thing I suppose I can say about my background is that I've been in finance all my life, whether in corporate, commercial finance, restructuring, M&A, etc. And went on with a few partners to found Peer Power, which is the first crowdfunding bond platform approved by our SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, and also more recently getting into the P2P sandbox, peer-to-peer. But today we'll talk about our current product, and for anybody interested in the P2P part, we can also take that up in the Q&A. So if I go to my next slide, overview in terms of the history of Peer Power is we began business operations understanding that the law would come in back in 2016. The law didn't really come into place around 2019. Hence, we had to do a beta platform in between in order to gather the necessary information and have a portfolio in which we can test our credit model. So in doing so, along the way, we have partners who have invested with us. Our seed round led by BOL, Business Online, which operates the corpus operations here in Thailand, which for our Korean colleagues, that's basically a central database for business information, where you can get not only company registration information, but also company audited financials. So the parent company of that invested in us in a seed round, followed by InTouch in a pre-A round closed in January of this year, right before COVID. So that was quite opportune timing. And that was a 1.5 million US dollar round. So essentially, this thing is not quite updated because since this slide was presented, let's say earlier this year, we've secured the P2P sandbox entry, and that was in September of this year. So quite recently, obviously this will get updated. So moving on, our team is just really comprised of people within the finance and technology space, led by the C-levels, which is on the top row. And then, the rest, the team supporting us, comprising a team, managing really a team of 30 people. What we do ultimately is Peer Power matches business owners, in this case, SME operators, registered SMEs, with investors, the providers of capital, people who invest in bond units, and bond units legally are a type of debt instrument. And in this case, it would be, bond certificates, etc. So investors can really, look for returns, check portfolios, including invest in different bonds being offered. So really a marketplace matching SME business owners who need capital, in this case, unsecured bonds, no collateral at the time being. But again, maybe linking back to Kun Ko-son just now, invoice factoring is something which is popping up. So that particular business will pop up under our P2P sandbox or peer-to-peer sandbox under BOT, as well as the e-factoring platform being initiated and sponsored by our Bank of Thailand. And again, this is also mirroring Kun Sataporn's and Kun Ko-son's comments that our regulators are quite accommodative. But funnily, from a fintech founder's point of view, accommodative, yes, but fast, not quite. So sometimes you have to wait around. You saw sort of our timeline. But I suppose what I can say is that it took us 3 years to get the first license. But once we got the first license, 6 months later, the second license came. And then in a couple months, the third one will be, hopefully coming for our infrastructure end of the business. So once you sort of, are able to secure the first one, subsequent ones, I guess, becomes, let's say, a little bit more facilitated just because you have kind of proven yourself to the regulators. In terms of our product, as I mentioned earlier, is unsecured bonds, but ultimately we emphasize speed, meaning that if you're current corporate, and usually the only, prior to sort of the existence of Peer Power, the only, let's say, companies that can issue bonds are, let's say, more medium to large companies, right, that work with brokers that normally take, let's say, 3 to 6 months instead of 2 to 6 weeks. Our bond size can go up to 50 million. That's on average. We're doing one which is roughly double the size of that. Duration short term, because mostly for working capital. The interest rate is a range from 8 to 22%, depending on credit scoring. And on the right-hand side, which is, the different types of companies that have raised capital on our platform. So basically software house, rock climbing gym, media company, essentially service businesses that for one reason or another aren't able to access bank credit. And mostly the reason being collateral. Funnily enough, and maybe Kun Ko-son, having worked in Siam Commercial Bank, can maybe back me up. But banks in Thailand, I don't know about Korea, maybe Korea is a little bit more advanced, but banks in Thailand trust hard assets. Banks in Thailand do not trust cash flow. Service businesses have cash flow, they have no assets. So therein lies the conundrum and the gap in funding, which Peer Power is trying to address. In terms of how we do our credit rating, we really look, again, at the first two components, which is, I think, HO credit scoring. ability to pay as well as willingness to pay, right? And these are, we'll call it more structured data. Whereas I think the aspect of the non-structured data where it comes in and we began by being very manual and automating over time is really the qualitative data of how you can put context to each borrower. In this case, ultimately, it sums up into credit worthiness of grades between A and HR, which are high risk. Anything on high risk is automatically rejected. So, and hence, that's the reason for, or at least the genesis of our credit rating system, as well as the different grades therein. The couple of other next slides is basically targeted at investors, is how does peer power as an asset class compare to equity and corporate bonds? I think for us, we're quite unique in that we're the only, so far as we know of, the only amortizing bond product in Thailand, meaning every month or every quarter, you receive both principal and interest back. Think about that. No other bonds actually, I think we did some study, maybe less than 1% of bonds have that feature. And people who register on our platform, well, since March have had the access to this feature now. So, it's a very interesting asset class. Here it's just showing more stable returns, less volatility, which is, as a diversification tool, is something to think about. And this other slide really just shows that, again, taking into account diversification benefits. When you build a portfolio, if you have, let's say, $1 million, $1 million, $1 billion, whatever, you don't want to put it into just 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bonds, right? The more you diversify, the more stable your returns and the lower your volatility and variability of returns. And this, we're just proving it mathematically based on, our 2+ years of experience with the loan beta platform and the crowdfunding bond platform. This basically, honestly, marketing material for our issuers when they come in, how they actually go through the investment process, the discovery process, looking at the bond prospectus, understanding the type of businesses, why a credit score was given, and then, funding it if they, again, find those returns attractive to their needs. On this last one, I believe it's a busy slide, but ultimately, I think the most useful slide for, again, potentially fintech startups out there, whether in the Korean ecosystem or Thai ecosystem, to look at related regulation with respect to crowdfunding. If you would like to get into the business, it's regulated by the SEC. The requirement is, according to this law, TOR-JOR 21/2562. That's the initial thing that needs to be reviewed and comply with and understood. Available in both Thai and English. But ultimately, I guess to summarize, I believe, KB, we can share these slides, correct? So I don't have to go through in detail. Maybe I can summarize. But basically, I think the guidelines of the SEC is they would like investor protection first and foremost. People who give money to other people to fund their businesses needs to be protected. Hence, you look at, the investor guidelines in the bottom. That's why it's quite detailed, right? If you're a retail investor, you can't invest more than this much over a period of, 12 months. Investment limit can be taken, out if you are a bigger investor, a VC, a private equity, a qualified investor, etc. And then they have definitions of what accredited investors mean. And then for the issuer guidelines, it's really just to protect, let's say, against the cross borrowing with the BOT sandbox, which is P2P. The only differentiation maybe I can note here with regard to BOT, which requires, I think, a different session, is that for BOT, they govern, let's say, personal loans or loans to individuals. For the SEC, they govern loans to companies. So that's what the issuer guidelines here are saying. And then some issuer limits as to how much you can raise, mostly about retail investors, right? Again, going back to what I was saying about the principle in terms of in terms of where their focus lies. So with that, thank you, and would be happy to take it up for further questions. And maybe just to answer, if I can maybe take this and answer Kun Koson. I was listening to both Bank and Kun Koson, and a few interesting things came up. One was, yes, I think, the part about bigger fish having more capital to survive, absolutely agree. I think the only thing fintechs or startups really have an advantage on is speed, execution focus, and commitment. That's the only thing. And actually, if we're not careful, the banks will catch up. And SCB already formed, 10X, which is, let's say an internal startup that have their own reporting lines. And so I agree with that. The other one, which again is coming to fore quite clearly, is the collaboration aspects within fintech, whether it's internally, within the country, across industries, or even across the region. That's coming more to fore. Again, I was only asked to introduce very briefly, but that's really just happening. Again, I'm kind of, Bank just came on in this video, but I was looking at Bank and I was, I need to call them in the next week or so to talk about things we may do together, stuff like that. Because I think it's hard to survive on your own. And I think the only way to do that as a fintech is through speed, focus, and collaboration, right? Don't try to reinvent the wheel where you don't need to. And actually, arbitrage and collaboration opportunities exist everywhere. Can you ride on their infrastructure? Can they ride on our license? Can we do this? Can we do that? Possibilities are out there as long as people are willing to explore and commit and actually get a product out there. And nothing proves it more than whether users use them or not. So that was my closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for your insightful presentation. And fintech key success factors such as speed, focus, and collaboration.
I jump in just 1 or 2 minutes because I think it's important to respond to what Kun Varapon just said, right? So basically, two last points that he said. Actually, I've had my thought, which goes along the same line very much. Number one is the bigger players, right? I think when you talked about, the banks, they were not interested in the cash flow, right? They were interested more like in the asset, right? When they want to give loan, but I think it's changing now. So yes. I think it's a big alarm, right? To all the smaller guys who actually try to differentiate. Okay, so besides SAB 10X that Kun Varapon mentioned, there's also another big department called SAB Abacus, right? So they rely heavily on data science, and then when it comes to data, right? So you talk about whatever, including cash flow analysis, right? So you can see the risk more effectively, and then you can make decision, right? So that's what the bank was lacking, in the good old time. When I talked about fintech pillars 8-9 years ago, I still remember very well, when we're trying to draw the framework. Actually, we started 10X since then, right? But at the time, 10X was just a small team to do it at speed, to build an app at speed, to try to do prototype at speed. But these days, it has come so far to, to have its own department, which is, going to be pretty big, and it also launches its own, maybe even, a food delivery startup, right? So, I would like to jump to number 2, though, which is, I think, very clear these days about collaboration. This is something that we have been trying to promote, for almost a decade. But I think I can see only now that, we started to try to, do it or execute it and take it more seriously, because it's the only way to survive. I think the bigger fish, I think in the beginning, let's say 4 or 5 years back, they may have said that, okay, let's try to collab, do it together. But these days, I think they know how to play the game already. We gave them too much time. Okay, so it's about for the smaller fish. I think I can see this very clearly, to work together, right, and to collaborate. And I think don't think too much that I'm going to be number one, I'm going to be the only unicorn. I think that's not going to happen, because if you look at the Chinese story, for example, right, all the big unicorns came from M&A, came from, combining different things together, right? So I think it's a time for us to actually, try to find the way out of this together.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, and I think the collaboration goes beyond, the just in the same sector, because honestly, at least for peer power, the ones which are most advanced for us are actually with non-bank financial players. For example, people in factoring, people in leasing and things like that are really coming to fore because they've seen that they've fallen so far behind the banks. The banks already have digital apps, which, as Kun Go-sung was saying, goes into all these things, whereas the non-bank financial services, they have the balance sheet, but they have no product. So this is where the opportunities, I think it's going to be quite interesting over the next few months and few years, definitely. So I'm absolutely excited. Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. Although we want to continue the discussion further, but we do have a little time delayed. So let's move on to Korean fintech presentations. Now let us begin with the presentation from Fintech Center Chairman Yu Shin-jung will go over overall perspective and landscape of fintech in Korea.
Sorry, Yu Shin-jung again. I'm just briefly touching about the fintech situation in Korea. Korea fintech has a little bit started later than a global market, but Korea has kind of strong points in IT and digital, and also the government, Korean government has a high willingness of promoting the fintech industry, and so we are rapidly catching up with global leaders of fintech, especially simple payment and remittance is growing rapidly recently in banking sector. There are three sector, the market, the banking and the capital market and the insurance. We are seeing at the banking sector that even though a simple payment in Korea about just 3% of the total amount of credit card payment, but it's more than triple in the last 3 years. And there are many the pay companies, including Samsung and Kakao Pay and Naver. At first, we thought many people thought the Samsung Pay is great potential, but the result is that the Kakao Pay is very leading. You see right side of the screen, neobank. In Korea, 3 neobanks have been approved by government. Among them, the Kakao Bank and the K Bank, and recently, the Toast Bank has the approval from the Korean government. But Kakao Bank shows a distinct growth. It accumulated 4.35 million non-face-to-face accounts within 100 days after start of service, and also it turned to a surplus, the less than 2 years. So many banks in banking sector, are alarmed and pay a big attention to Kakao Bank's boost. We are telling you had a kind of the catfish effect. They are still the moving forwarding. Another sector in the banking area, the P2P lending. Personally, I think P2P loans is a very good business model in long term. But right now, Korean government much concerned about it because real estate, the related loans are significant portion. 86% of total, the P2P lending is related to, the real estate. And as you know, COVID-19 negatively influences, the P2P loan. Right side of the screen, let me talk about, robo-advisor. It's, belongs to a capital market. Capital market, the two things, that belongs to a capital market, robo-advisor and crowdfunding. Robo-advisor starting in Korea about, 4 years ago. Until now, it's not so much strong. But I think, because from this year, from the beginning of this year, Korea has entered into data economy era. And so I think, the big data start to give, the high potential in robo-advisor market in Korea. And particularly recently, Korea COVID-19 has led to digitization of securities. So it has led to a rapid increase in robo-advisor accounts in Korea at this moment. And then, the crowdfunding. As you see, crowdfunding, I think crowdfunding has a very good business model. Particularly has the three kind the effect, funding effect, and also the marketing effect, and the revenue generating effect. Because it is different from it is not belong to the capital venture capital market. It's belong to a capital market. So a lot of people cannot invest in. Even though it is a very, very small amount of money, but a lot of people, because a lot of people get those money so big. So I think pretty good. But the before Morapon, the German Morapon, talk about the crowdfunding in Thailand. It is a little bit different from Korea. I think that is very focusing on the bond. So later I wanted to ask of him about what about the stocks and something. Korea is pretty much focusing on the stocks. Korea crowdfunding, and at this moment is increasing. So it covers not only the stocks but kind of the project or kind of some funding for the special goods. And right side of this screen is covers insurance. So we call it InsurTech. It's a little bit studied late, but as in a global market in Korea as well, the InsurTech has got the more the concern interest from many people from the market. And then where Korea fintech innovation is located, I think there are 4 stages for fintech innovation. I think not only this is not only a fintech innovation, but the financial market innovation as well. The first stage, you can see the left upper side of the screen is unbundling. The consumer chooses customized services such as payment and remittance in their hand. And then the step 2, the second stage is about the digital platform. I think the TOS service. TOS is kind of the very prominent services of new fintech in Korea. It's a unicorn, and it's a good example. At first, remittance is only provided, but as there was high satisfaction from customers, its services includes not only payment but also securities at this moment, as insurance and even neobank recently. The third stage, right below side of the screen, is about using data. As companies can use big data, so A, B, C, D technologies such as the AI, B, blockchain, C, cloud computing, and D, data will be much more utilized. Therefore, fintech enablers. In Korea, we call it the tech pin rather than fintech enablers. But tech pin companies will become more and more important, and also big tech pin, so-called big tech, to jump in the market. And then you see the left below side of the screen, step 4. Step 4, is a kind of stage, financial and non-financial business model integrated with each other. As you see, step 3, because we use big data, everybody knows, the financial transaction data. What does it mean? The financial transaction data, it has, all information of all the goods, product of all in all industry, and so it can analyze consumer behavior. So it is very important, when it is integrated with the non-financial sector, we can make the kind of fused business model in every industry. So I think if financial sector, financial companies, in financial sector, by use of these things, this data analysis, it can make the very diversified business model with other industries as well. Step 3, because it uses the data, so the technology are pretty important. So in step 3, tech pin or fintech enablers emerges, and big tech jump in the financial market as well, and also very easily, very rapidly can enter into step 4. So I think step 3 is very important. Korea is at the step 3 in terms of financial innovation stage. And this shows, as I told you, early this year, the Korea National Assembly passed the amendments to the 3 major data privacy laws, so-called Individual Information Protection Law, Information Network Law, and Credit Information Law. So you can see the screen, Korea, as I told you, now in the 3rd step of fintech innovation. And last stage, we see because of the 3 the data related law, we can make several things. First one is the fintech data exchange platform. We are open a fintech data exchange in last May, and so it covers not only financial data, but the kind of individual sensitive data, including distribution and the telecommunication. But still now we do not cover the medicine related information. But I think even though there are the limitation, we see is the growing trading of data at this moment. Lastly, let me talk about the buy data. I think that everybody participating in this webinar knows the my data. I think it's very meaningful because it's a first new business model of Korea's data economic era. It gathers all personal data so that individuals can search their integrated data and can design, customize the financial product. At this moment, not only financial institutions, and the fintech enterprise, but also non-financial companies like the big ICT, big the platform companies like Kakao, Naver, KT, LG, SK. They all they're interested in my data industry very much. So I think we are seeing a big change in the Korean financial market and a big digital transformation. So I hope to to have a a chance to have a cooperation with the Thailand financial companies and fintech. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for delivering the overall fintech status and Korean challenges and opportunities in Korea. Now, due to the time limit, let's move on to first presentation with CASA, introducing CASA's real estate exchange platform.
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me and also CASA to this seminar. And I'll go right in since we're kind of delayed in time. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yes, I
okay.
can see your screen. Yes.
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, thank you. So we're CASA. For those of you guys who speak Spanish, CASA means house, as in C-A-S-A. In Danish, it also means kinko, or basically a safe. So when we created the company, we wanted to convey in the name kind of our mission to really safely and easily enable people to invest in real estate. And hence, we are a company that really serves and provides a service that lets anyone invest in commercial real estate. So, next slide. Okay. So our mission is very simple. We want to make the world's assets accessible to all. And what we mean by that is basically, it's similar to just saying that we want to kind of lower the gap and democratize the opportunity to invest in assets that traditionally has only been able to the rich, individuals, and institutions. And so there's a lot of these asset classes, but we are now focusing on commercial real estate. Sorry, we're just kind of technical issues here. I'll be right there. Okay. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so the market size of Asia commercial real estate is $51 trillion. That's literally just adding up all the valuation of buildings and land in the region. And of that, only $169 billion are actually invested or traded as statistically proven data. So while the market size is very, very big, the actual transaction volume, although 169 billion is not small, it's very, very small compared to the entire market. And reasons are varied, but main reasons are because it's very illiquid market. There's only a few participants, and the cost for transaction is very, very high. So in Korea, and I'm sure this is also very applicable in anywhere in Asia in general, but if you want to invest as a retail investor into commercial real estate, it is virtually impossible. As in, even to participate in a fund, you would normally have to have a sizable amount of capital and also willing to put that in for about 5 to 8 years. And so in Korea, for example, there's only about 3.45% of the entire market is available to the general public. People who are willing to put in, let's say, less than $1 million or less than several thousand won. So this is very, very proportionately imbalanced towards private investors and institutions. And so what we do, based on this very big problem and obviously bigger market, is that we provide a digital exchange for real estate ABS. So unlike loans, we are actually selling and trading equity and letting anyone actually trade it on our platform like a stock exchange. So if you are a user on CASA, you can invest as small as $5 for any building. and also trade it freely on our platform into a secondary market. So this is kind of like the screenshot that we have that we are actually servicing in Korea. In the left, let's say you have a building in Gangnam, just because that's our CBD, and it's about $25 million. You can invest as small as $5 or as much as $100,000, as much as you want. And this is basically crowdfunded, just like an IPO. So when we are able to fill the entire market cap of a certain building, we are able to liquidate it and provide that to the building owner, which then obviously exits from the asset. And about a month later, the same building on the same platform is open for secondary trading, just like a stock. So we provide a very simple interface where you can trade bits of this property. I'm not going to go specifically into this, but our main way of liquidating and issuing these ABSs are based on a trust agreement. So in Korea, there's a lot of trust firms that specifically service real estate. In our case, we are partnered with a bigger fish, such as Hana Bank, which is the #2 bank in Korea. And they basically are able to serve as a custodian for all of our assets. So if a property owner comes to CASA and says, hey, I want to sell this and put it on your platform, Hana Bank will be able to take that into custody. And based on that trust agreement, we are able to issue and offer DABS or digital ABS to our users. And then after that is collected from our platform, the property owner takes the money and then leaves. So it's a very simple process in the back end. But simply put, we put our asset ownership into the trust. So the way actually we earn revenue is very simple. We are mostly a commission-based business model. So whenever we IPO a building, we take 1% of the valuation of the building from our users. So whoever participate in the IPO. So if it's a $100 million asset, we take $1 million. And then afterwards, transaction fees occur as well, just like an exchange. So from both the maker and taker side, we take about 0.2. So that adds up to about 0.4% of the total transaction volume. And we also take dividend commissions from every time the rental income comes out from the building and is paid out through our users. So like previously introduced with the environment in South Korea, we were actually one of the first companies to be accepted by the Sandbox program here in Korea. And I understand there's over about 100 different fintech initiatives that have been regulatory exempted by the government as of date. For us, we were actually given exemptions in 3 different categories. Number 1 was the ABS issuance. So anyone can basically issue these ABSs based on a real estate trust. It was not actually approved or available in the legal terms, but we were allowed to do that. And secondly, we are also given the exemption to serve as a security exchange, which is a pretty big exemption if you think about the current regulations and restrictions of actually setting up an exchange. Lastly, we are also serving as a security brokerage, so anyone can buy and invest in securities through our exchange. All right, so we've launched in September of this year in Korea after 2 years of preparation and working with the government. And our next markets are actually in Thailand and Singapore. We're looking very, very forward to entering these markets. And I think the number one deciding factor is obviously regulatory environment. And we see Thailand as a place where the government is very pro-fintech, as we have already discussed during this talk. And we're excited to see what kind of opportunities Kasen can bring to the market. So again, we've been exempted by the Korean Sandbox and have the operating rights to run about 2 to 4 years here in Korea. And we were able to acquire some patents along the way for tech and business models. And we are actually partnering with big fishes here in Korea. So we found a way to actually make collaboration work between a fintech product and also one of the largest banks here in Korea and some security houses. So we think that this model can easily be or should be promoted outside of Korea as well. I won't go into too much detail about our team, but I'm Changwan. I serve as the CEO. I've previously studied computer science at Stanford. I've done some crowdfunding, founding, and also worked at a VC. And we have about 70 people working on this product right now.
Changwan, sorry, just a quick jump in.
Sure,
when you're expanding to this markets, you're open to partnerships and collaborations, yeah?
We are very, very open. I think one of the main things that we should be able to do is actually to customize and also work with a local partner. It would only make sense.
I love that vision of asset securitization platform because that's an area we're also, working on. So yeah, whenever, would love to talk.
Thank you, Jim, for the comment. Yeah.
Yep.
So we've raised about 3 rounds, over about $20 million in accumulation. And for some reason, we were very fortunate to invite banks as our investors. So our most recent round was actually invested through the state-owned Bank of Korea, Korea Development Bank. And I think now is a good time, just like Jim said, that we want to kind of copy and paste or expand out into other parts of the region in Asia and see whether we can get investments or partner as a JV, et cetera, with our local partners in each country. So very excited about that. Whatever we proved in Korea, we hope to also kind of share with you guys in Thailand as well. So yeah, this is kind of like our basic milestone. We are working to get license approvals in Thailand. In Korea, we've already launched, so we're trying to launch and list about 5 properties, each around like $10 million to $30 million in asset value by the end of this year. And we're on track to acquire about 500,000 users in Korea. All right, that's CASA, and excited to talk more later on. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Ye Chang-wan, for your business model and finding new opportunities and expansion in Asia, specifically in Thailand and overseas. Okay, we will have a Q&A session later. So let's move on to our final presentation by Fly High, Mr. Kang Hyung-gu, CEO.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Humphrey Kang, the CEO of the Fly High Vietnam. I'm here, the Ho Chi Minh, 1.5 hours flight to Bangkok. It's closer than the Seoul, or even if it's closer than the Hanoi. Okay, I will explain our business and relate to the pandemic situation now. Okay. Can you see the slide?
Oh, not yet. Can you share your screen?
Yes.
Yes. Now I can see your screen. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Fintech is a very common word to the Korean, the Singapore, and the Chinese. Japan is an outlier, forget it. Yes, but the Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam, not yet. Why? In this country, government leading to the cashless society by the various reasons. Tax problem, or the cost of the printing the money, and mobile is very helpful and the best tool to this movement. But still, this area people still have the habit for the loving the real cash. I think it seems not change easily. But the COVID-19 have changed everything. Maybe pandemic will be going on the next year, maybe next year. I think it takes a long time to have the tourists come back to the Siam Square or Kaohsiung again. What is the most emerging part of the COVID-19? The Deloitte Consulting expect financial service, virtual banking, untaxed payment will be grown off the more 20, even the 20% more as, for the next 5 years. As you know, Korea is the most fast adopting country on the new technology. Interestingly, the 42.5% Korean startup companies said as the pandemic situation, it will be the big chance and the big momentum for the huge developing and huge change. Yes, already Koreans received many kinds of the pandemic service. In the pandemic service, Koreans showed the very highest satisfaction in financial service, 71.8%, very high. Our company, Fly High, is a contribute to the very high satisfaction with the Kakao Bank, the youngest internet-only bank, but the most valuable bank in Korea. Every day, over the 20 million people experience the secure and simple financial service with our solution already. Our solution is proven already. Yes, you can find the biggest and fastest adoption in the money transfer and payment area. And the saving, investment, and the financial planning, insurance, lending is coming after. We combined this key function, key service. This is our service, Bank V. In our single app, you can check all the bank accounts and transfer money and pay. It's with our technology, open banking is enabled in the Asian country, like the England and Korean case. Our hyper-scrapping technology enables to connect multiple banks and make the real-time money transfer to the old bank with a low fee. Yes. Just one-time login. You don't need the login others bank app you have. You can check all the bank account in your single app and ready to money transfer. You can see the very simple reference thing. Yes. We make the more simple service and more simple the UX now is. Our service starts in Vietnam. Next year, we are targeting to the Indonesia, the biggest market in Asian country. After Indonesia, we are expand our service to all over the Asian country, including the Thailand and the Cambodia, Myanmar. We cover the B2B2C and the B2C and the B2B too. It means we want to cover from the single customer to the corporate too. It's our market position. We are focused on the combined service with the asset management and the money transfer. We have the world top classes technology and the insight in security and payment. It's a strong point to Korean fintech company. We can expand our service fast because we don't rely on the third party's API service or any alliance of the bank. We just connect to the bank with our own technology. It's the business model and our business strategy. we're starting from the financial service. It's at this time major revenue resources from the targeted advertisement fee. Next goal is personalized financial product recommendation. Finally, our services can be defined information business for the marketing and the risk management and new business with combined financial data analysis and over the cross-border in an Asian country. As you know, these areas credit bureau business is not good, like compared to the Korea or the US market. So we want to do something different kinds of the micro credit bureau business. We are ready for the more customized service to each market, each country. While we checked the related legal issues and related legal rule, we are also looking for the partner in the area, but not limited. We are happy to often to make alliance any marketing company, bank, and the e-wallet service, payment service, and fintech service too. Because our service bank is an open platform and aim to the cross-borders one financial service. It's our objective and our vision. It's a short our service introduction. Yes, thank you for today. Yeah,
Thank you, CEO Kang Hyung-gu, for your presentation. Although we have a very limited time, so we made all the final presentations from Korea and Thailand. Due to the time limit, although we have a very limited time, we are actually time over. But let's have a Q&A session quickly. We already have inquiries from our Thailand side and Korea side. Let's have a free discussion about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I would like to jump in here if I can, because
yes.
Obviously,
just 1 minute. Would you turn off the screen sharing?
Sorry.
Okay.
Right. I think, you know, it's kind of surprise for me, even though these days I'm wearing this hat, you know, like running the real estate company. But, you know, I thought that I could contribute to the our forum today. But however, I think I could benefit from it as well, right? Because, you know, like the CASA, you know, startup that you presented today, I think maybe we can work together. So I think it's a good coincidence, right? So try to maybe just leverage from this. I think that we all here, right? So we are actually spending time together. I think we should try to formalize our kind of clear, you know, like actionable items to do together. For example, right? I think for Kun Varapon from Peer Power, you may clearly say that, you know, if at all, would you need anything from the Korean side? You know, example, like, you know, the investors, the fund, whatever, right? Because you're going to be, you know, running your business here in Thailand at scale, and also maybe expand to other countries, right? And also for, you know, the, you know, Korean startups. For example, I also run my business in Vietnam as well, right? So when I heard about Bank B, I have seen, you know, you guys trying to launch the taxi thing, maybe the yellow thing, same thing called B, right? And when you want to come to Thailand, I would like to know, you know, what kind of support you need in particular. Maybe I cannot help, but the chairman of FinTech Association can help, or maybe my partners can help, right? So I think it's good to kind of, you know, make it clear what we can help each other from this step, okay? Like, for example, CASA, I can see right away, right? Because we wanted to do this fractional right, fractional ownership, you know, way of business model for our real estate, because we have lots of assets here too, right? So then we can make it as productive as it could for today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Koson. Can I jump in? I think for me, yeah, specific thing I suppose I would probably want to discuss with CASA on is, given the asset-backed nature, ABS actually expands, you know, you do it in real estate, and I suppose with Ananda, that's, you know, pretty clear. for us, asset-backed securities can mean many things. For example, securitization. In this case, I'm looking at leasing portfolios, factoring portfolios, of our partners that will come through our platform. And then that whole tokenization and secondary trading, that's obviously very attractive because it's coming on our back end. And with any startup, I think, our service necessarily expands to B2B to C at some point, which is, platform as a service, if you will. So it's that aspect of our business is, what's the next stage? Because right now what we're doing obviously extends to 2021, but what's beyond June 2021 is essentially what we're building now. And that would be interesting if we can, accelerate that instead of making all these mistakes potentially. Maybe we can skip all of that and then maybe help you guys out as well if that's an extension of your platform, Chongwan.
And one more thing I would like to add from my experience in Thailand. Besides the FinTech Association, I also have my own company called Smart Contract Blockchain Studio, who provide the blockchain development services and consultant for a company in everywhere. What we did previously about the securitization and tokenization is we developed the bond tokenization platform for KBank and also for Toyota Leasing to launch their bond to their investor. One of the issue I would like to raise here, because I love the way every people try to collaborate. But one thing I like to raise is we need to consider the whole process of tokenization and securitization. For example, custodian and also the registration service. With every people in this room, I believe we together can tackle all of this problem and create the end-to-end solution that can break through all the obstacle that we previously has experiences.
Yeah. Good point, Bang. That's you probably articulated it better than me because that's essentially what we're trying to solve on the back end, which is the payment custodian securities depository. Right. As we're solving that, because we need it for ourselves anyway, and as partners come in, potentially, the more liquidity, the better, right? As anybody who runs platforms or SaaS businesses know. So for us, if we're building this and, yourself, Bank, and, CASA guys, whatever you guys have built, whatever makes sense to me. That's kind of how I usually, that's sort of the specific thing I'm thinking about. So, very good point.
Sorry, can I ask about, the startup fund?
Yes.
Sure. Oh, sorry.
I think, the situation is a bit different from, in terms of, the cryptocurrency. Is there any limitation to cryptocurrency in Thailand? And how many, if it's okay, how many, the companies dealing with, the trading cryptocurrency in Thailand?
Okay, for trading cryptocurrency, in Thailand, we have the Digital Assets Act that is under the regulation of Security and Exchange Commission or SEC. So if it is the purely medium of exchange, you can issue and you can sell and buy as an asset, not as a money. It is categorized as an asset. But if you want to raise the money with token you create, you have to go through the process of ICO.
Many cases of that?
In fact, we have a couple of companies that already got an ICO portal and ICO portal license. Already a couple of companies, and to my understanding, there is still no ICO that issued under the new regulations. But again, the market already shift from ICO to DeFi or to the to the staking or pooling protocol already. But with the current regulation in Thailand, if you want to raise the money, it can be categorized as fundraising, and you have to go through digital asset. If you want to create the token or cryptocurrency that very similar to the securities, maybe you have to go through the Security Act. It really depends.
Let me also add here, the very key problem here in Thailand is that we have to look at the elephants in the room, right? So basically there are two entities. Number one is SEC, right? As Kun Sarapan just mentioned. Number two is Bank of Thailand, right? So as far as, fintech is concerned, for example, when we do real estate here, we want the foreigner to just use the crypto to buy the whole condominium, for example, right? It has to deal with two entities, not only one, because Bank of Thailand would also be the one who say that this money is a foreign money or not, something like this, right? So these two are interlinked, and many of the cases that have obstacle, is mostly because they're kind of chicken and egg thing. Okay, so the SEC say, okay, what do the people at Bank of Thailand BOT say? And when we go to BOT, they say, okay, what about the SEC people? So it goes back and forth all the time. So it has become, the challenge that we have been having in Thailand. However, I think if I have to compare between the two, I think SEC has been progressing these days. Just like Kun Warapun said, right? Okay, if the first, approval came, right? Okay, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, I'll follow. Okay, and this happened quite a lot with SEC for the past few years, but for Bank of Thailand, I think they're still catching up.
Thank you. And time is very tight, but the chairman,
just so many interesting topics.
Yeah, so many interesting topics. Yes. You talk about the crowdfunding bond, right? And the yield of 8 to 22%, and the 6 months to 24 months. I think two issues, the Korean fund mostly. It's the venture startup or generally
the companies, yes, the startups. Or
they have collateral, so use collateral, but
no, uncollateral, non-collateralized. That's why they have to be registered companies where we can do the KYC and the credit scoring. They have to be registered companies. We have a pretty good, formal registration system here. As long as you're in it, then we're able to check all of your information through the Department of Business Development. And we use the database through one of our investors, right, BOL. And then we, again, can also check on sort of, other, let's say, credit history information. Let's say if they're an AIS SME customer, as AIS is the biggest, mobile operator here. Many of these guys are SME customers who then we can track for transactions, etc. And that's because InTouch, which is the parent company of AIS, is also an investor. So I guess, I forgot to mention, I suppose, the collaboration part we've already kind of commenced. And interestingly, on more of the non-financial side, but more for information and data analytics side. And then ultimately now we're moving into these things with, the non-bank, financial, and hence my deep interest in the asset-backed securities and securitization aspects.
To me, it is pretty much like, the P2P, which, the design, kind of, the lending product, right? In Korea, it's pretty much like, the P2P lending, but in Thailand, it's in the bond, and it belongs to, who belongs to, the security market, right?
It belongs to the SEC, which is, that's why it's bonds, or the P2P, which is the consumer loans. And that, for us, the product will come out in, the fourth quarter, in November, is when that will come on launch. Yep.
Also, individually, my opinion, I think there are a lot of chances if we, the crowdfunding company, integrated with, for example, the e-commerce.
Yes.
I think, the pretty good model, and also we, cooperate with, globally. For example, Thailand and Korea, we can very make a good model. Of course, we, talk about talk with the government of both countries, but it's pretty thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments from Thailand to inquiries to Korea, or Korea to Thailand inquiry?
I just wanted to kind of highlight Jim's chat on the chat board. Basically, love to follow up after the talk with all of you guys, and I think the time here doesn't do justice for all the good content we brought to the table. So happy to follow up afterwards too.
Okay, thank you for comments. We will circulate all the contact info shared to me for your references, so we can follow up definitely. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so due to the COVID-19, we faced a lot of challenges.
I'll bet you there are 1,000 questions that can't be addressed here, but
right.
Yeah,
I will follow with you.
Time and hopefully report on our collaborations. That might be interesting
yes.
to follow up on.
Yes, so let's keep in touch and contact Fintech Center for any inquiry too.
Sooner or later, we have another the webinar.
And I think this is a good opportunity to say that COVID really doesn't stop us, and actually the fact that we're doing this and interesting opportunities will pop up is really an indication of where the world is moving. I'm really glad. So thank you for inviting me. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Sorry, and so if we have another chance, we'll invite the investors as well. We have two governments, big investors, the fund of Korean government. So we can contact with them and then to invite them to here and talk about that. Okay.
Awesome.
And Minister Councillor Kritawa, do you have any comments or any inputs about this collaboration between Thailand and Korea? I look forward to it. Yeah.
Oh, right now, no, thank you. Okay. I think this seminar is very fruitful. Yeah. And our Thai government also ensure to support for the both investor to create any collaboration between two countries. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We will look forward to cooperating and collaborating with the two countries and business opportunities in the future. Okay, due to all the time limits, so we are very a little sorry to close the seminar right now. So okay, let's move on to later on if we have a chance to meet all together here and more useful information shared in the future. Okay, thank you for joining today's seminar. Thank you, panelists from Korea.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
everyone. And online viewers. Next seminar.
Each other.
Okay. Okay. Let me close my comments with we will have an upcoming seminar with Indonesia on this Friday. If you are interested, please visit Fintech Center Korea website, or we will let you know about the one-on-one country online seminar also. Okay, thank you for joining us. Let's end this seminar at this moment. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.